He hasn't texted back. You tell yourself not to care. You tell your friends you're fine, but deep down your stomach twists as you glance at your phone. Again, just one more check. Maybe this time, maybe he realized what he's risking. Maybe he'll come back with something different, something real. But the screen is still silent. You scroll up, rereading that one message where he called you different. You believed it, believed you were different. But now, all you feel is the silence between his words and yours, and 100 overanalyzed moments that never meant as much to him as they did to you. You start to wonder, when did I start accepting so little? And that's where everything shifts. Because respect doesn't bloom from giving more, it blooms from giving less of what costs you your dignity. It's not about being colder, it's about being clearer. The first time you say, "I'm not available last minute," and actually mean it, you feel it. That inner click, the mirror inside you straightens. You're not trying to punish him, you're just showing yourself you matter, and he sees it. When you no longer explain your silence, when you don't rush to respond just because you used to, he notices. Not because you're playing a game, but because you've stopped playing his. It's when you set a limit without raising your voice. When you smile and say, "That doesn't work for me," and walk away if it doesn't change. That's when something in him shifts. Because real men don't chase women who are easy. They respect women who are anchored. It's not that he starts to love you because you set boundaries. It's that you start to love yourself again, and he has no choice but to either rise to meet you or disappear in the shadow of your strength. Because the moment you stop fighting for crumbs is the moment he realizes you were the feast all along. You try to be patient. You don't want to come off as controlling. So you stay quiet when something bothers you. You give him the benefit of the doubt. You hope he notices how much you care, but inside there's a quiet ache. Because all you've done is love more, give more, prove more, and still feel like it's not enough. You've apologized first, explained too much, shrunk yourself to keep the peace. And now you're tired, not angry, just worn out. Because being the bigger person has started to feel like being invisible. But here's the truth. The women who respect you don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be clear. Boundaries aren't harsh, they're honest. When you say, "I don't tolerate disrespect," with calm strength, something changes. She sees a man who knows himself. When you walk away from emotional games, when you don't chase, beg, or try to fix everything, she starts to wonder, why does this man feel different? And the answer is, because you respect yourself. The men who are constantly bending, people-pleasing, or proving their worth get tolerated, but the man who moves with quiet clarity, who knows when to give and when to walk away, he gets remembered, he gets respected. Because when you stop trying to earn her love, she finally sees your value. Why is it that the more available you are, the more she seems to drift? Why does being too nice, too agreeable, sometimes make her lose interest instead of grow closer? You think showing up, giving more, proving you're different will earn her love. But slowly something shifts. The more you give without boundaries, the less she sees your value. It's a pattern most men don't even realize they're in, thinking that being the good guy means never saying no, never setting limits. You cancel plans for her, you tolerate mixed signals, you silence your needs just to keep the connection alive. And at first, she seems to like it. But then, the respect fades. Why? Because deep down, women don't just want kindness, they want containment. They want to feel the edges of your self-respect, not walls, but structure. Not control, but certainty. When you say, "That doesn't work for me," without anger or fear, you break the cycle. When you no longer chase confusing behavior and instead respond with calm detachment, you shift the dynamic. And suddenly, she sees you differently. She starts to think, "This man doesn't need me, he chooses me." That difference? It's magnetic. Because what makes women truly respect a man isn't his effort, it's his energy. And when that energy says, "I know who I am, and I won't abandon myself for love," she'll either rise to meet you or quietly fade. Because she can't manipulate what she can't control. And you'll stop begging for respect and start embodying the kind of presence that earns it without a word. Here's the truth most men never hear. A woman doesn't truly respect the man who gives her everything. She respects the man who doesn't lose himself trying to keep her. You thought being available meant being valuable, that loving harder would make her stay, but slowly you disappeared in the name of love. You made her the center of your world, and she stopped seeing you as the center of hers. But here's the shift. A man becomes magnetic, not when he pleases her, but when he protects his peace. She feels it when you pause before answering a disrespectful message, when you don't explain yourself over and over, when you say no without flinching. That quiet strength, it wakes something up in her, not fear, not confusion, respect. Because the moment you stop seeking approval is the moment she starts wondering why yours feels so rare. It was a Tuesday night, quiet except for the dull hum of the fridge in his small apartment. She was sitting across from him, legs tucked under her, eyes not quite meeting his. The air between them had been thick for days. Not with anger, but with something heavier. Disappointment. He had cancelled plans last minute again. She brushed it off with a smile and a soft, "It's okay," even though it wasn't. And tonight, she was here. But different. Quieter. More still. Like she had already packed something invisible. He reached for her hand, trying to bridge the gap, but she didn't take it. Instead, she looked him dead in the eyes and asked softly, "Do you even know what I want anymore?" He opened his mouth, then shut it. He didn't know. He hadn't asked in a while. He'd been coasting, assuming her loyalty was permanent, that no matter how many times he showed up late, disappeared emotionally or gave half answers, she'd still be there. But she wasn't anymore. Not really. And then she stood up. Not with rage, not with tears, just with a quiet finality. She picked up her keys, her bag, and looked around the room like it no longer belonged to her, or maybe like she no longer belonged in it. And with one last glance, not angry, not pleading, she left. That was the first time he felt something sharp cut through the fog. Not heartbreak, not guilt, respect. For the first time in months, he saw her not as someone trying to earn him, but as someone who had just reclaimed herself. And that's the moment it hits you, isn't it? Respect isn't given when you chase. It's born in the silence after you stop. The truth is, most men don't realize how much a woman needs your boundaries, not because she wants to be controlled, but because she wants to feel your spine. A woman can only truly respect a man she can't manipulate. A man who holds himself steady in love. Who doesn't over-apologize when he knows he did nothing wrong. Who can hold her storm without losing his calm, or himself. The man she respects is the one who doesn't explain his worth with words. He shows it with decisions. Like the night you stop replying to passive-aggressive messages meant to test you. Like the day you say, "I don't chase unclear people. If you're confused, take your time. But don't expect me to wait," and mean it. Like the moment you stop begging for closure and start giving yourself peace. Because every time you enforce a boundary, you teach her something. You show her that your love isn't desperate, it's directional. That you won't bend so far that you break. That you are, above all things, whole. She respects the man who doesn't flinch when she tests him, who doesn't fold just to avoid discomfort, who knows when to say enough with a quiet certainty that says, I know who I am, I don't need to be chosen to feel worthy. And here's what happens next. She starts to lean in, not because you're hard to get, but because you're hard to shake. The man who sets boundaries with calm strength is the man she thinks about when the noise dies down, when the attention fades, when the boys she once entertained start to feel childish. She'll remember you. The one who didn't flinch, who didn't beg, who didn't barter for respect. The man who walked away when his peace was on the line, not to hurt her, but to honor himself. And in that memory, she won't feel resentment. She'll feel something rare. She'll feel respect. Because the moment you choose yourself without punishing her is the moment she realizes she's met a man who can't be swayed by fear or seduced by chaos. A man who knows the power of stillness. And from that stillness, she sees the truth. You never stopped loving her, but you finally started loving yourself more. There's a moment, quiet, unannounced, when everything inside you shifts. It's not dramatic. It's not angry. It's not the kind of moment anyone else sees. But you feel it. It's the moment you stop performing. You stop adjusting your tone to sound more agreeable. You stop texting first just to make sure he doesn't forget you. You stop checking his social media, wondering who she is, what she means, and why he hasn't said anything yet. You stop auditioning, and in that stillness, you come home to yourself. This is the kind of boundary most people never talk about. Not the kind you draw with your mouth, but with your energy. It's not loud, it's not controlling, but it is unshakable. It's the boundary that says, I will not abandon myself just to be chosen. And that energy, a woman feels it, deeply, even when you're not in the room. See, when a woman tests your patience, cancels plans last minute, or starts playing emotional games, she's not always doing it to be cruel. Sometimes, she's doing it to see you, to feel the edges of your identity, to know whether she's with a man who will stay calm under pressure or crumble just to keep her. And here's where the shift happens. Most men react. They beg, they explain, they overextend, thinking that more effort equals more love. But that's not how women work. That's not how respect is built. Because what women truly respect is containment. Containment isn't control, it's clarity, it's presence, it's the ability to hold the dynamic, the moment, the discomfort, without losing your ground. It's when she's distant, and instead of chasing, you remain calm and centered. It's when she throws a test, and instead of flinching, you respond with grounded honesty. I don't do games. If you want something real, I'm here. If not, I'll make space for someone who does. It's when she's emotional, and instead of fixing her feelings, you let her feel them, knowing it's not your job to save her from herself. That kind of emotional boundary tells her everything she needs to know. It tells her you are not a man who fears losing her, because you've already found yourself. It tells her that your peace is not on the table, that your time, your love, your presence is a privilege, not a prize to be won through manipulation. And in that moment, she begins to see you differently. She starts to respect the stillness in you, the steadiness, the refusal to chase something that's uncertain. And even if she doesn't say it out loud, she begins to lean in, not out of desperation, but out of reverence, because you've made the shift from needing her attention to commanding her respect, from over-explaining to speaking with intention, and proving your worth to embodying it. And that's when something magical happens. You stop being an option in her mind and start becoming a standard. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped trying at all. And let her feel what it's like to meet a man who no longer negotiates with his peace. A man who doesn't fear the silence, who doesn't mistake love for approval, who knows that the most powerful thing he can say is, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to honor me. And that kind of man? He's unforgettable. Not because he stayed, but because when he left, she finally realized what she had. She came home late again. He didn't ask where she'd been. He never did anymore. Not because he didn't care, but because he was tired of pretending it didn't sting when she walked in hours after their plans, with no explanation, no apology, just an energy that said, "You'll wait, you always do." And the sad part was she was right. He had always waited, always gave her the benefit of the doubt, always held space for her chaos, her moods, her distance. He convinced himself that being patient made him noble, that understanding her pain would eventually make her soften, that if he kept proving how good he was, how steady, how safe, she'd finally look at him with the same respect she gave to the men who treated her like an option. But she didn't, not really, because what he didn't know back then was this: women don't respect the men who absorb their disrespect in silence. They respect the men who won't. He remembered the night it all changed. Not the night she left, the night he did. It wasn't explosive, no shouting, no begging, just quiet, just different. She made the same joke she always made. Something small, cutting, dismissive. The kind of comment that used to sting, but he'd laugh it off, keep the peace. But this time, he didn't laugh. He just looked at her calmly and said, "That's not okay with me." She blinked, surprised, uncomfortable. For the first time, she didn't know what to say. And he didn't fill the silence. He didn't try to explain why it hurt. He didn't try to make her understand. He just let the truth land. And it did. Hard. Because when a man draws a boundary, not with rage, not with threats, but with certainty, a woman feels it. She feels the shift, the edge, the strength, and something in her rewires. That night, he didn't sleep on the couch. He didn't stay up waiting for a better version of her to show up in the morning. He simply packed a bag and left. Not forever, not in anger, just far enough to return to himself. And in that space, everything she thought was guaranteed cracked. Because here's what no one tells you: a woman can't love you in a way that lasts if she doesn't respect the way you love yourself. When you tolerate flakiness, you teach her that your time is disposable. When you ignore emotional manipulation, you teach her that your peace is negotiable. When you over-explain, over-give, overstay, you teach her that her chaos holds more power than your clarity. And clarity is what she's craving. A woman wants to feel you, not just your love, not just your words, but your core. The part of you that says, "I will love you fully, but I will never abandon myself to do it." Because the truth is, every time you say yes when you mean no, she feels the fracture. Every time you laugh off the insult, the disrespect, the test, she loses a little more admiration. Not because she's cruel, but because she's wired for strength. She tests not to destroy you, but to discover you. And when she finally meets the version of you that doesn't flinch, that doesn't chase, that doesn't fear being alone, that's when she respects you. Not for being cold, not for being distant, but for being so rooted in your value that even her love can't tempt you to betray it. And maybe she cries when you walk away. Maybe she begs. Maybe she says she'll change. But this time, you don't return for promises. You return only for consistency, for truth, for real. And in doing so, you stop being a man she takes for granted and become a man she'll never forget. Because the line between being someone she dates and someone she reveres is this: the moment you respected your own heart more than her attention, she finally understood your worth.